Welcome to Awesome Video Game Memories, where we talk about awesome memories about video games. I'm Ryan, and the game we're going to talk about today is Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Spirit of Justice. Objection! Now, before you watch any of this video further, there are going to be major spoilers of this game and the rest of the games. I'm warning you, you probably want to click here for another video that doesn't contain spoilers. Alright, with that out of the way, wow, I can't believe we are at 6 main Ace Attorney games already. And a couple of spin-offs. So I got into the Ace Attorney franchise around 2006, about a year after the first game came out on the DS. Back in 2006, Capcom was starting to realize that the first Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney was becoming a runaway hit. Yeah, I also remember back in the summer of 2006, prices for the first Phoenix Wright were going pretty high on eBay, but I was very lucky to get my copy from a ma-and-pa game shop for about 20 bucks. By the time I was getting into Phoenix Wright, Capcom announced that the second game, Justice for All, was going to be localized. And also what I heard in 2006, a lot of people weren't really sure that Justice for All was going to be localized. But now, here we are, 10 years later, we have 6 games, making 2 trilogies in the Phoenix Wright series. My, how the time flies. So the big challenge of the Ace Attorney games is every single time they have to make the games more interesting than the previous one. Because for Phoenix Wright and his friends, there's always something really heavy at stake, like, for example, Maya always gets implicated of murder every game, personal friends of Phoenix Wright always have something big to lose, and also, Phoenix Wright lost his career at one point. And even with the spin-offs, how is Capcom gonna make things interesting for the 6th time in a row? I mean, 6 is a pretty large number. But the best thing about this game is that this game was more of Apollo's game. Yeah, even more than the game that was titled after him. Because in Part 4, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, even though you do play as Apollo the entire game, the game isn't really about him, it's still more about Phoenix Wright. And I will totally explain why this is Apollo's game. And seeing all the previews, I remember really being excited to see Maya Fey return. Because I remember in Part 4 when Phoenix was in the hospital, he was like, yeah, this kid is sending me some Steel Samurai comics. And in Part 5, he makes a mention of her. And now I was finally excited to see an older Maya return where she hasn't really changed much, she does wear a different outfit, and she gets implicated for murder again. So my first experience with this game was at E3 2016. Objection! I played it at the Capcom booth. You get to play a little bit of the first case at the beginning. And I remember playing the newest mechanic of this game, the divination seances, where you get to see the dead's last memories and you had to contradict one of their sensations. And I remember I was stuck at this. I remember telling the Capcom employee at E3, I was like, dude, I solved every Ace Attorney game. How can I solve this? And he's like, well, I solved it too, and you have to figure it out yourself, buddy. Although I do admit, it was really cool of him to not give me the answer right away and let me solve it, because I eventually did. Only to realize, man, did they get a lot harder in the full game. Oh boy. Now, to make things interesting in comparison to the previous games, this game takes place mostly in another country called Kurain, different than Kurain Village back in Japanifornia. So most of Phoenix cases take place in the country of Kurain, and because we're in a different country, we have different name puns. And I admit, it took me a little while to understand what they were, like, I'll be your guide. Oh, I'll be your guide. Peace, loving, and understanding. Oh, peace, loving, and understanding. Pat roll. I think Pat roll took me a little thinking to realize that it was patrol. Believe in me. Trust in me. Praise a lot. Although the one that I didn't understand at first was, that's a rebel. Oh, that's a rebel. Oh, yeah. Oh, I get it now. I totally get it now. Anonymous. Okay, that was a little obvious. But yeah, I do admit they did get pretty creative with the name puns while still making them sound foreign. And in this game, we are introduced to one of our new antagonists who eventually becomes good, Raifa Padme Kurain. who's a bit of the bratty princess of Khura'in, but she can do the divination seances where we get to see the dead's last memories. And she calls Phoenix Barbed Head, and then she calls Apollo Hornhead, and then she calls Clavier Gavin Drillhead. She has an obsession with hair on people's heads. I wonder what she would call me. Oh. Well, that's what YouTube comments usually call me anyways. Although I do admit she does grow on you a bit, especially by the end of the game. Now, one of my personal favorite things about any Ace Attorney game is the music. I mean, the music is always incredible in every Ace Attorney game, and this one is definitely no exception. Although I do admit the music in this game isn't exactly as strong as the previous Ace Attorney games. I do like the courtroom lobby scene, and I still love the examination themes, and the pursuit theme. And of course, the best theme of all is the new jazzy version of Phoenix Wright's objection theme. It really makes you feel good when you point out contradictions. Although the music is still really good, it's really overshadowed by the remixes of a lot of the previous themes from the games. And now our newest prosecutor, Nahuda Sadmati. I didn't really find him as intimidating as a lot of the previous prosecutors, although I think he comes off more as a Naruto character, like Prosecutor no Jutsu. And he has this really smug, holier-than-thou attitude, so when you take him down, it feels pretty good. Although I didn't really enjoy his, bead gimmick as much as some of the previous prosecutors, like when Simon Blackwell literally slashes Phoenix's hair. And then we have Francisca, who whipped Phoenix, and Godo, who threw his coffee, although I wasn't really the biggest fan of him. And also, Emma Skye is back, and she's now back as a forensic detective, and she's really happy, and she's not as grumpy as she was in Ace Attorney 4, although she is still the new Gumshoe. Yeah, I think we need to see Gumshoe again in a future game. And like I said before, Capcom decided to make things interesting by putting Phoenix in a completely different country where they abolished all lawyers. Yeah, that kind of sounds like something Doc Brown said in Back to the Future 2. That's why they have speedy trials in Khura'in. And in this game, they introduced the Defense Culpability Act, where if the defendant is found guilty, the lawyer is also found guilty and executed. Considering all the game overs I gotten in this game, I must have executed Phoenix and Apollo way too many times. Alright, now let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's go to the cases. Alright, so for case 1, I was actually surprised that Albie was like, "Oh my god, you're a lawyer, you're evil, evil lawyer, you're a hex on this country!" And then there was Gaspin Payne back from the previous game. This time he's like the king of the prosecutors. It's always good to take Payne down, because I'll show him what Payne is like, with my finger. And then we had the antagonist, Peace, Lovin', and Understanding, and I know the developers tried to make him as suspicious as possible, but in all honesty, I actually found him not to be as suspicious as Pat Roll, because Pat Roll kind of had that, face where he looked a bit... And in all honesty, I did think Peace, Lovin', and Understanding was pretty cool. And he was like, "Yo, dude, I'm like a hippie, man. Lawyers need to be all abolished, man. Peace, man. Like the spirit of the 60s is still living here in Khura'in." And I especially loved his guitar. "Lawyers, you're a bunch of scumbags, but you convicted me anyways." Alright, so in case 2, we are back in Japanifornia. And in this case, we're in control of Apollo and Athena, and this is the first time Trucy actually gets arrested. And our antagonist in this case, Roger Rettings. Oh, I hated this guy, man. This guy was such a fucking douchebag. First, he makes Trucy sign a contract. And then when Trucy gets arrested, he seizes the entire office. Yeah, sounds like a typical douchebag TV producer. Although he has a really weird infatuation with Bonnie DeFalm. "Hey, Mom, you're so cute! I'm such a douchebag!" I really hated this guy. I haven't hated a bad guy in the Ace Attorney series since Red White from the first game, but Roger Rettings is really coming in a close second. Yeah, I did find it weird that the Bonnie sisters, there were actually 2 of them. Yeah, and I was expecting the other one to be the killer, but that wasn't really the case. I knew that douchebag Roger Rettings was definitely going to be the killer. Although I didn't exactly expect him to be Mr. Reyes. Well, because in the Phoenix Wright games, characters don't really age that much, but yeah, this guy's aged a lot in the past 10 years. Yeah, so beating this douchebag TV producer really felt good. I think his final act is a disappearing act into prison. Now we have case 3 where we're reunited with Maya, and guess what? She gets implicated for murder again! Gee, Maya, you still can't stay out of trouble after all these years. And in this case, we're introduced to one of the best characters in the Ace Attorney series, Anonymous, aka That's a Rebel. Now this guy is fucking awesome. Yeah, this guy's basically the Corrine version of Larry. Although I did find it weird that they let a convicted criminal like Dats testify in court before going to jail. And this case personally introduces one of my favorite lines in the Ace Attorney series. Well, time to reach into my bag of bluffs. Yeah, that's usually what I say when I try to fight a content ID claim on YouTube. Oh man, another content ID claim and I gotta prove fair use? Well, time to reach into my bag of bluffs. And now, one of the biggest mysteries we've been wondering since the first game. Now, we've always wondered what Misty Faye looked like when she channeled Gregory Edgeworth. And in this case, Maya actually channels Trust in Me. At first, I thought she wasn't gonna succeed because her chances of summoning spirits hasn't always been great, but now that she's gone through training, she's actually an expert at it. And when she actually channeled him, whoa. Alright, listen, I know you're a monk and all, and you're probably friends with Dawson from Street Fighter, but you might want to be careful with that body because it's not yours, and she probably can't really do that. And they also borrowed a bit of the third case from the first game where it was actually a self-defense murder. Yeah, because when I first saw the divination seance, I thought Perez Zealot was on the ground because he was caught in that praying position when he was killed. But he was actually holding back a stone and he got crushed. And it was pretty crazy that Trust in Me tried to pin this on Maya because there's no lawyers in Corrine, and if Believe in Me was found guilty, which she most likely will be, she would have been executed, so he committed suicide for her. That's really crazy. Yeah, and I do admit I did feel a bit sad after he confesses and his spirit is channeled away from Maya. And also in this case, we're introduced to the leader of the rebellion, Dirk, who is fucking awesome because he's the Han Solo of the Ace Attorney universe. Now case 4 is a bit of a short case, and I do find it to be the weakest case in the game, but it is a good opportunity for Athena to shine, and actually we see Simon Blackwell again. Because the previous game, Dual Destinies, which is the 5th game, was more of Athena and Simon's game. And yeah, I actually thought Bucky Wet was kind of funny. Hey, what's up? I got some soba. And in all honesty, I thought Uendo was the killer, and I thought his Owen personality was going to be this psychotic, crazy killer, but it actually turned out to be this little boy. Yeah, in all honesty, I didn't expect Giru at first. I always thought Uendo's smug-looking face was gonna reveal him as a killer, but I was definitely mistaken. And it's just like in any Ace Attorney game. Usually the person you expect the least is usually the killer. And in this case, it's really awesome to see Simon go up against Nahuda, because I'm going to take that holier-than-thou attitude and slash it with my blade. Now, case 5. This is where all the shit goes down. This is where, in any Ace Attorney game, where all the fucking shit goes down. And this is the case where we finally see Apollo really shine. So we see Dirk come to America to visit Apollo again. I wonder how a wanted criminal could get on a plane, although that will be revealed later. And it's kind of funny, I consider Dirk to be Han Solo and Dats to be Chewbacca, although Dats is already shaven by this point. And in the first part of this case, we're introduced to Paul Attition, the antagonist, who reminds me of a certain presidential candidate. And it was pretty crazy to see Sergeant Buff, the helicopter who belonged to the daughter of the victim, Archie Buff, shooting actual bullets. And these bullets are nothing compared to what happens later in this case, trust me. And in this game, we actually get kind of a semblance of an action scene where Dirk and Apollo are searching the cave, And I admit I could not solve that puzzle for the life of me. Yeah, I didn't realize one piece of that puzzle like literally had to be turned different than the others. There was no way I was able to solve that on my own, so I kind of, looked up a guide. Yeah, and this was the only time I looked up a guide for this game. And the first part of this case is actually a civil trial, not exactly a murder trial. And in this case, Apollo actually goes up against his mentor, Phoenix Wright, who serves as politician's lawyer to get back the Pearl of Amy-Faye, which was the Founder's Orb. Although you realize that Phoenix had to be politician's lawyer because politician had Maya kidnapped, and it was a good throwback to the fourth case in the second game where he had to defend someone who wasn't clearly innocent. And then it's revealed that politician actually killed Archie Buff because he wouldn't give back the Founder's Orb. Make Karine great again, and then that crooked Archie Buff, he took the Pearl of Amy-Faye. Now I lost the election. Crooked Apollo Justice. We're gonna build a wall around Karine. And in the second part of this case, we'll go back to the country of Karine. And when I said shit went down before, shit really hits the fan in this part of the game. Holy shit. Now, the biggest reveal of this game is Apollo's father, Hove Justice. Now, back in the fourth game, I thought Valiant Gramrai was gonna be Apollo's father because of the way his face looked and the fact that Thalassa had a love triangle. Now we can throw that out the window. Yeah, and we do get a lot more of Apollo's past, that he was actually raised by Dirk along with Nahuda. And I personally didn't expect Dirk to be the killer of Inga, but the twists in this case are really fucking crazy. So now that we finally get to the last trial, it's revealed that Queen Garan used to be a prosecutor, but then when she gets into her prosecutor outfit, she looks like Rita Repulsa. Now, this is where all the crazy shit happens. And I was pretty mind blown by the events of this case. Where to begin? Now first, Dirk says there's a truth that Apollo might not be able to handle. And it was revealed that Dirk was dead for 3 days before this case. So Maya was actually channeling Dirk and went to America. So that kind of makes sense how Dirk got on a plane, or actually Maya got on a plane first and went back to America. Although, wouldn't Dirk have Maya's hair? Whatever. But then Queen Garan murdered her husband, Inga, and tried to frame it on her sister, Queen Amara, who she tried to kill 23 years before, which caused Dirk to become a rebel because Dirk was accused of the murder, which is why Karine is in the state it's in and they abolished all lawyers, so which is why Phoenix Wright has to fight against a whole country this time. And then I know Dirk was channeled again, but Inga couldn't see his face. God damn, this is like a fucking Rubik's Cube or something. And yeah, I was expecting Nanya to be somebody else. I mean, there was more to her that sees the eye, and yeah, she was Queen Amara all along. But then she gets shot in the courtroom. Now, I remember the villain in the previous game, the Phantom, got shot, but this game, a whole army marches into the courtroom, ready to kill anybody. Like, holy shit. Yeah, so when I said Capcom wanted to try different things with this game, they raised the stakes on this game so high that Phoenix and Apollo are fighting for their lives. So it's revealed Rita Repulsa, Queen Garan, has no channeling powers, so she has to use her sister Queen Amara to channel spirits. Yeah, because the Founder's Orb was like a huge deal in this game and you had to go through a lot of trouble to get it, it would have been really cool to see someone at least channel the Founder now that they had the face. But the orb just doesn't get used, like, ever. That's pretty much my big gripe with the story. Yeah, so once they dethrone the Queen, who's ruling the country now? It's not really stated that Queen Amara takes the throne again and Rayfa is the next in line. But Rayfa needs to channel spirits, so she can't be the queen yet. Yeah, so who's ruling the country now? Now for the ending, I actually expected Apollo to go back to America saying, there's still much more I need to learn from Phoenix Wright, but I'm surprised he actually decided to stay. And it actually does make the most sense. Yeah, because he does want to uphold Dirk's legacy and restore order to Khura'in. I mean, it's not really made clear that the Defense Culpability Act is gone, but now Apollo is literally the only lawyer in Khura'in now. And it is actually cool Nahuda goes back to the Defiant Dragons. A dragon never yields. And he does want to help reform the country from the prosecutor's side. Yeah, so Nahuda could still stay the rival for Apollo even though they're both trying to restore the country back to order. And wow, Case 5 was definitely one hell of a roller coaster. And also, like the previous game, we get 3 DLC cases. Although 2 are really short and are more meant to sell themes. But they were pretty amusing. I mean, I do kind of like the first case where Pearl and Albie try to guess Rayfa's height. Although it would have really been nice to see Pearl channel the judge's father. But Capcom got really lazy with this and just showed a black screen. I mean, what the hell? And the second DLC, which actually brings back Clavier Gavin, and Rayfa starts calling him Drillhead. You know, they're both trying to guess Rayfa's favorite vacation spot, which was pretty amusing. Now we have this special DLC case where Larry comes back called Turnabout Time Traveler. And I thought Turnabout Time Traveler meant that this case was going to take place 10 years ago with Larry, but actually it takes place in the present where Larry is apparently a successful author. And he kind of forces his way for book signings. Although shouldn't he really be well off as an author because his book Franzie's Whippy Whip was a big success? And I thought the defendant, Ellen Wyatt, was actually pretty funny, especially when she brings out the pot and pans. I mean, how the hell did she sneak that into the detention center? Yeah, I think that pan has an endless bottom because she's crying waterfalls into that anime style. And it was pretty cool that the judge was like, man, this is kind of reminiscent of the old days. We got Edgeworth, we got Maya, and we got Emma. And it was cool to see Emma and Maya finally interact. Yeah, and kind of from the start, I did expect Pierce to be the killer because he's obviously the assistant and, you know, it's always the butler that does it. Although when Pierce reveals that he's the surgeon, it reminded me of Trauma Center, and this guy really looks like he belongs in Trauma Center. Yeah, and obviously the whole time travel thing was debunked because, one, Larry's an idiot and he thought he saw a pterodactyl outside. And Ellen thought she did go back in time, but they were doing the reception again to cover up, you know, the murder. Although I was pretty surprised, you know, Soren actually went outside and tried to rescue Ellen. Because of the power of love. Yeah, I did find it funny Edgeworth was like, no, I don't reminisce with my enemies, but I will hang out with you guys later. Edgeworth was just being Edgeworth. Yeah, actually, I found the DLC case to be a lot of fun. It wasn't really as long as I thought it was going to be, and it was great to see Larry again after all these years. Yeah, so overall, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice is another strong entry in the series, mostly because it was more of Apollo's game. And this was the game I thought that the fourth game had the potential to be. Because in the previous game, Dual Destinies, we did see Apollo fleshed out a lot more, but that game was definitely more of Athena and Simon's game. Where this game, we finally see more of Apollo's childhood, we get to see who raised him, we get to see his biological father, and we get to see Apollo grow as a lawyer as he finally makes the decision to run his own law firm in Khura'in. Although personally I didn't think the game made the impact that Dual Destinies made because Dual Destinies was the jump from the DS to the 3DS. Although I thought the writing and the story were a lot stronger in Spirit of Justice, mostly because it focuses more on Apollo. And also the fact that the developers took a lot more risks by putting Phoenix's life at stake. And also having Phoenix fight against a whole country this time. Yeah, so now that we have 2 trilogies, where do we go from here? Well, obviously in the next game they can definitely have more cases take place in Khura'in with Apollo and Nahuda battling against each other trying to restore order to the country. And for Phoenix's side, now that they don't have Apollo, hopefully we'll get Gumshoe back and we'll hopefully see Francisca again. And hopefully maybe Larry will have a bit of a bigger role. Yeah, so Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice is definitely another strong entry in the Ace Attorney series, and I definitely recommend picking it up. And this game is available on the 3DS and will most likely be available for Android and iOS. Yeah, so that wraps up this episode of Awesome Video Game Memories about Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. And if you have any memories about this game, make sure to leave those in the comments below. Take care and objection!